Welcome back to episode 12, Brokers of Secrets. Now, here's a secret for you. You are benefiting from your problems. In fact, you're benefiting from your problems so much it's costing you a lot of time, money, effort, relationships, and even time. Your life energy, right? Now, listen, there's a lot of people out there thinking that it's just a struggle. You struggle, it's natural, you struggle for a bit, and then you succeed, hopefully, right? And then life is unpredictable, and then you lose it, and then you make it back. You often ask the question, how long will it last? Can I preserve what I have? Can I build again? People are oftentimes living in these problematic states, wondering when it'll all be taken from them. The problem is not the person. The problem is their state, and that there is something that the state is wanting to communicate, the mental emotional state, right? That feeling, that emotion that we're talking about is a message communication or a message delivery mechanism, right? Communicating to you something you need to know about the subconscious, your subconscious. And what they're telling you, what your subconscious is telling you, is that you are benefiting from your problem, but it's gotten to a point where that benefit is not as great as the problem and the suffering and the pain that you get. Meaning, the problem and the consequences of the problem outweighs so much more than the actual benefits. Give you a concrete example. When you were in second grade, let's say you got bullied. Let's say somebody says something mean. And then maybe you were hurt emotionally. Maybe they even beat you up and you got hurt physically. Well, now you're safe and healthy now, yeah? But back then, because of that, you went and told your teacher, your friends, or your family, and then they showed you an abundance of love. And they cared for you, and they supported you. You built a mental loop in your mind that in order for you to get the love and support and appreciation, you needed to get beat up. You needed to suffer pain. You needed to be bullied, or something negative has to happen. So as an adult, that doesn't work anymore, but somehow you find yourself in situations where you are being pushed around, where you're bullied, where you're finding yourself suffering these pains that are unnecessary, just so that you could get a little bit of benefit of attention and love. That is what I mean by you are benefiting from your problems, but the benefits are not great. They're not good enough for you to suffer. Now, that's what we call a secondary gain, and that's actually what powers the loops that we've been talking about. And if you follow me on social media, William.upgrade, right? UPGRD, William.upgrade on Instagram. You'll see me posting the loop quiz, which I hope you've taken, because that will give you context on what we're talking about, and that you hopefully have listened to our previous episodes about the loop. The loop here is the architecture behind many of the symptoms. And symptoms, by that I mean fear, anger, sadness, guilt, shame, embarrassment, feelings of inadequacy, unworthiness, and the doom and gloom that some people have, right? The future's going to be really tough. All of those perceptions of scarcity, and fear, right? I mean, look at the industry, different industries nowadays. Especially look at real estate, right? How many people in real estate are scared, thinking that the world is literally, well, doom and gloom is a pretty good description of that. But they're thinking that the industry is terrible. People are living in scarcity. The market is down. No one's buying. No one's selling. And not just real estate, right? But in other industries, they're like, oh, the tariff. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. The problem with people having these symptoms of problems is that the actual problem is not the market or the economy, is the loop. Let me give you a great metaphor that explains what the loop is. let's say we resolve whatever you need to resolve. You have gained some great success, and let's say fast forward 3 to 5 years, and you're like, oh my gosh, listening to the Brokers of Secrets podcast changed my life. And then maybe you even took some of our trainings. You're like, oh man, that changed my life even more, and I want to celebrate. So you send us an email or a phone call, and you're like, hey, I want to celebrate with you guys. May I treat you guys to a wonderful restaurant in Scottsdale? Now, that sounds great. We say yes, and then, fast forward at that time, we're going to the restaurant, and we jump into a nice limo or whatever, and on the way, I'm hungry, and I'm asking you, hey, where are we going? I'm being impatient, right? Tell me, where are we going? And you're like, oh, it's this restaurant. And I'm like, oh, let me ask you a weird question. Are we going to the place on the restaurant on the map? Are we going to the restaurant on the map, or are we going to the place on the map? You're like, wait, what? You just said the same thing twice. Are we going to the restaurant on the map, or are we going to the restaurant on the map? Basically the same question, right? But I'm clarifying then. I'm like, no, they're not the same question. The words may be the same, but I don't mean the same thing. You're like, well, then explain what you mean. Okay, well, are we going to the restaurant that's being referenced by your map? Or are we going to the restaurant that's literally built on your phone, on your Google Map or Apple Map, whatever you use, right? You're like, well, of course the first, not the latter, because there's no actual restaurant on my phone. Duh, right? I'm like, that's true. But how many people are aware that is their mental program, is the mental architecture, is the loops in their lives that's actually driving what's going on? It's actually the map. It's not the external world, the so-called the market, the economy, the customers. It's their map. So if you're ever wondering why you're not succeeding, it's not the world, it's your map. It's the loop that you're running in your map. So you're literally running in circles. And what is that powered by? It's powered by benefits. The benefits that you accepted when you were young, or somebody taught it to you, somebody who's an authority figure, or somebody that you respect, or somebody that you trust, or maybe it's repetition from media, and you accepted and installed a benefit that's actually not beneficial enough, and then you form this loop. And we call this benefit secondary gain. It's not a primary gain, right? It's not like you set a goal and the primary gain is you hitting the goal. It's that there's a secondary gain. If you got the goal, you wouldn't get the secondary gain. So you intentionally, subconsciously, of course, and for most people unknowingly, they sabotage. And then they don't hit their goal, and then they get what they want, which is the secondary gain, what they want, right? Now, there was a gentleman one time, and this is an interesting story. He got sick. He works too much, but and he doesn't see his family or friends, and but he got sick, and he's never seen this many people visit him in one go. Right? Within that week of him being sick, so many people visited him, and he was feeling great about himself. He felt valued, he felt loved, he felt appreciated. People were sending him cards, bringing him fruits and whatever it is, right? Gifts. He felt loved. Now, that pattern was actually a loop because he did the same thing when he was younger as a kid, and he completely forgot. He didn't even think the two were related. But when he was a kid, he would do the same thing. He would find himself getting sick, not just to avoid school, which some kids do, and a lot of kids actually kind of do that, right? This gentleman avoided school got sick not to avoid school, but got sick to feel loved. That is what we mean by a secondary gain. And he kept the pattern as he got older. He did the same thing. Yeah. Now, business owners have done something similar like this, right? A different pattern, different loop, different benefits, but you'll see a pattern here. There was a business owner, and she intentionally tanked her business after taking it to epic heights, succeeded big time, and then she would tank it to see who would stay and stick around for her, to support her, who is truly loyal. Problem is, who's suffering there, right? Everybody. Nobody wins. She thinks she's finding her real friends, but her real friends have mortgages. And even her other according to her, not real friends, and people that work for her that literally just has to care for their own family and take care of their own mortgages and pay their own bills. It's not like they abandoned her just because the business tanked. They needed to pay bills, right? And she took it personally. You're seeing a pattern here that there is a benefit and there's something someone's doing to get those benefits, but these benefits are actually damaging. And they're damaging not only this person's life, but it's damaging the ecosystem. And so let me say it this way. If you find yourself wondering, because you've set a goal and you have an intention to hit a certain goal, that goal, you somehow don't hit it after many attempts. Or if you have a problem that you've been wanting to solve, and realistically it should be able to be solved almost instantly or really quickly, but for some reason the pattern or the problem repeated and or did not get resolved after 3 months of actually trying to solve it, and maybe it even goes beyond 3 months, but 3 months should be a good indication that there potentially may be a secondary gain. Now, I heard this wonderful, wonderful statement one time from Ken, who's our head of student success. I was talking to him, and he's like, we get 100% of what we want. I'm like, wow, that's quite profound. He's like, we're so intelligent as beings, right? We have this quantum computer inside of us. We're like a quantum supercomputer. We can calculate possibilities faster than the speed of light. How could we allow ourselves to suffer if there was no benefit? And I'm like, man, that's right. But if you tell people this, people get politically correct and they're like, no, that's victim shaming. No, there's no shaming here. This is just asking the question of what's the benefit? And of course, you got to be appropriate about when you ask this question. But I'm asking you to contemplate internally and wonder if there's something in your life that you've been wanting to work out, wanting to solve, wanting to resolve for over 3 months now, and you haven't solved it. Now there's a tool, and the tool is so simple. It's to identify the secondary gain, and it's one simple question. What is the purpose of this problem? Or what do I benefit from this? Unconsciously, right? And you'll find that oftentimes the benefits are feeling appreciated, feeling loved, feeling valued, all of those needs and wants on the hierarchy that indicates what do humans really want, right? What do humans really want? The hierarchies of wants and needs, yeah? And there are different names over the years, and there are different modifications. Just Google it. The key here is a lot of people has these unconscious wants and needs that they will use something that's not beneficial, a negative event, so that they can acquire that. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of people means all of the people, but I am saying that there's a good amount of the population that subconsciously do that. Not in all areas of their life, hopefully, but at least in one area. So it's worth examining. I'm not exempt, right? I am not. I look in my life every day and I'm like, that is not resolved still. What can I learn from that? What's my benefit for not achieving what I want or for not getting what I want? So as we consider this question, what do I benefit from this, right? What can I learn from it? Consider it with an open mind. Get good rest. Maybe ask yourself that question right when you wake up or right before you go to sleep. And I'm going to give you a bonus tool for you to test out, for you to utilize that can help you rewrite that. So as you go to sleep, look at your week, look at your day, and anything that you don't like, right? There's a potential secondary gain. I want you to rewrite it in a way that you have the benefit, once you find out what the secondary gain is, that benefit, and negotiate with your mind and say, hey, what if I can have the benefit but not the problem? At first, your mind might say, well, you can't have no problem and get the benefit. But you're like, yeah, we can. That was a second great decision. We're capable of doing that now without the problem, without the pain or suffering. Yeah. So I'll give you a quick example. One time I was talking to a lady and she was like, I have this sadness in my heart that I don't want to let go. And I'm like, oh, what's the purpose? That question, right? What's the purpose of keeping it? She said, well, my mother wouldn't pay attention to me if I let that go. If I'm no longer sad, she wouldn't pay attention to me. And so she would do great for a while, and then as she noticed her mother not pay attention, she would get sad. And I'm talking about doing great emotionally and in other areas of her life, her career too. And then she would find herself coming back down. This is the loop, right? Well, if you consider her scenario, and she said, no, I can't let that go because I need that attention from my mother. I said to her, well, what if you could have the attention from your mother and let go of sadness? That would be great, right? And be able to experience joy whenever you want, on demand, because that's a state that you can actually program like that, right? And she's like, wow, I never considered that. Because that is not conscious, and therefore it's not easily logical. So when you begin to uncover these, look at your day, look at your week at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and contemplate, what if I could have the benefit or benefits without the problem? I can have the benefits, yeah, and still let go of the problem and achieve what I want. How nice is that? That is true abundance thinking. That is win-win. That is actually quantum thinking. Too many people are so binary. I can either have this, but I have to let go of that. No. You can actually have it all. So listen, test it out. Ask yourself those questions. And if you haven't come to an understanding of what these secondary gains are powering, right? Because it's powering an entire infrastructure inside your mind. And that infrastructure is what causes many of the problems, the symptoms, the fear, the anxiousness, the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, the getting back with your ex when you know you shouldn't, all of those things, right? Or partnering with people that you don't actually trust, but you're too much of a people pleaser to say no. All of those things, there's a benefit. Because even, like I said, people pleasing, there's a benefit, right? Because you're getting a certain satisfaction out of that, or avoiding conflict, or whatever it is, maintaining peace, but you're not at peace with yourself. As you examine all those things, ask what's the benefit, and as you understand, at least begin to understand your benefits, you can quickly resolve it by, negotiating. Well, what if I can have the benefit and let go of the problem? And your mind will be like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do that. I know that sounds simple, but it is so effective. Do that daily, weekly, whenever you can, so that you can resolve problems that have been stubborn and that you deserve to let go of and build this upgraded life. See you in the next episode. If you haven't taken the quiz yet, go and get to know that infrastructure so that you can understand this episode even better. Take the quiz. See ya.